Hello everybody, it is me, Pacific. Wow, just reading the comments this morning and I had to laugh. In my video I did last night, all are welcome. Deshaya said, Applebee should pay us to go there. I'm like, that's funny. Wouldn't that be nice? Businesses pay me to bring my truck to them for an oil change, service and repairs. They pay me to eat at restaurants. They pay me to shop at their grocery store. Really, that wouldn't be a bad universe. It might keep everybody honest. So, Pyramid Head sends me a picture of a house, 3-bedroom house, the good size lot, $39,500 in a Independence, Missouri. And I was like, holy cow, is that cheap? And my mind starts going, $39,500 for a big old house? But then I look at the town and I think, yeah, no jobs. And somebody at work the other day was telling me that they lived not too far from that area and said, I think Independence is a lot of meth heads and meth houses. I'm like, oh boy. But yes, folks, there are still houses you can get for even under $50,000 in the U.S. You can go to Detroit and buy houses for $10,000, $7,000, but you'll need a $65,000 security system if you plan on living in Detroit. What I want to know is why I can't find a house that's $39,000 in Hawaii. Because I'll tell you what, if there was that, I'm going for it. Oh, yes, it seems like there's always a fly in the ointment, a catch. Cheap house, no work. Or if they do, hi, welcome to Walmart. Can I take your shopping cart from you? So we're talking about this thing called offensive. We Christians need to remember something. This world is offensive. It's offensive to God at every turn. Do you notice how the media and our secular world has turned things around? I was parked with my bus at one of the middle schools I pick up for in the afternoon. An older gentleman was standing outside the school fence on the public sidewalk with a box of New Testaments. One of the Gideons. Now, the security guy is always nice to me, but he walks up to him and he says, I think you need to go. He says, nope, I'm on a public sidewalk. I'm legal. Well, I need to call my boss and check. And I thought, wow. Guy isn't yelling. They do this all the time. They'll hand out New Testaments to the middle school, high schoolers, and the kids have the power to choose them or not. And I noticed some of the teachers coming out, giving them the icy glare, and I thought, wow. Not a homeless man, not a pervert, not a child molester, not an ex-con, a mass murderer, but a genteel older man standing with a box of Bibles on the ground, just holding them up. Would you like a New Testament? And people are getting offended. Hey, this is a public school. Separate from the church and state. Well, yeah, but I'm standing on a public sidewalk. Isn't it funny how society has turned things around? Upside down, you turn me. Instinctively, you give to me. I mean, they have twisted it so much that we've become conditioned. Oh my gosh, he's handing out Bibles at a public school. No, he's handing out Bibles on a public sidewalk outside a public school. Isn't it funny how in public education you can't talk about Jesus Christ, can't talk about the Bible, but we can cater to Muslims and Ramadan and Kwanzaa, whatever, and all these Muslim holidays, and we can promote and push the religion of humanism, atheism, socialism in the public schools. And don't kid yourself. Those things are totally being pushed. Totally. And the school's okay with that. The school's okay with talking about exploring your sexuality. Sad. So why are Christians so afraid? Churches that say, we don't want to talk about doctrine, doctrine divides. Hey Christian, have you not looked? The secular world is divisive. They force you to choose. I mean, literally, let's update the version of the Bible here. Choose you this day whom you will serve. Gay marriage or straight marriage. Choose you this day whom you will serve. The right to kill your baby that God gave you, or the right to life, which God is very crystal clear in His Word. Choose you this day who you will serve. Atheistic evolution, or the simplicity of, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. We're forced to choose. So why do Christians run around trying to be all nice, trying not to be offensive, when all I got to do is get in my truck and go out that front door, and some motorist will cut me off within 10 minutes of driving? No turn signal, you honk, and up goes the middle finger. I'm like, I'm going the speed limit, I didn't do anything wrong, and you just did that to me. But a man standing outside the fence of a public school handing out Bibles is enough to rankle people. By the way, the security guard got nowhere after making a call and walking off. I thought, I like the security guard. We always chit-chat. He lives out in my suburb. But I'm like, wow, what's he getting all bent out of shape for? Well, you know what's funny? You can mention names of people, and people may like or not like somebody, but man, you mention the name Jesus Christ, and you're in trouble. It's funny, people will freely, in a workplace that says we will not be discriminated against based on creed, religion, now sexual preference, sex, age, gender, whatever. And yet those same employees that don't want to be harassed for being lesbian, being gay, being pro-murder. I hate the word choice. I just call it what it is. Pro-murder. I had a baby. I got knocked up last night. I don't want the baby, so I want to kill it. I'm such a loving, caring mother. And you know what? Those same will yell out, Jesus Christ, as a cuss word. The hypocrisy of the world is interesting. I watch people out there that when I honk the horn, they're yelling at me when they run at my stop sign. And yesterday when I was at breakfast, one of the drivers says, oh, I thought it was great. This last week, there's been a cop hanging out, watching people run my stop sign, and they go through it, and he puts on the lights and pulls them over, and I thought, I wonder if they'll flip off the cop and yell at him. I like it when a woman tells me, you need to mind your own business. Mind my own business? I'm honking because you're going through my stop sign, lady. That is my business. Are you really that intelligent? Seriously? There's a mentality now. I've tried an experiment. I'll be driving down the street and somebody will haul butt past me and I'll tap the horn. Beep, beep. They're looking around. You know, Americans actually say, you're not a cop. You don't have the right. Wait a minute. But do I? Think about this. You have the right to endanger me, break the traffic law, and if you lose control of that vehicle and spin out in front of me, I'm involved in a wreck. So that's none of my business? I'm not a cop, right? One thing Americans hate is that we are accountable to each other, and they don't like that. You're not my boss. You're not my authority. Nope. But I'll own you if you cause a wreck and it goes to court. I will own you, baby. I will own you legally, and I'll own your bank account and estate and your insurance company. I'm amazed when I drive out there that people are not thinking legal. Are not thinking legal at all. And they don't realize that as rich as they are, as well off as they are, that if they cause an accident, they could get sued of everything they've worked so hard to obtain. But it's the whole mentality that it ain't going to happen to me. So, what does this all have to do with offense? Why do Christians become cowardly, even Christ-denying, in the face of a fangs-bearing society? And all they're doing, haven't you heard the saying? You go to somebody's house, oh, don't worry about my dog. His bark is worse than his bite. The secular world. Remember what it says about Satan. He prowls about like a roaring lion. Have you ever met the guy that's, I'll kick your ass, blah, blah, you know, the guy yelling and screaming, and you're like, and if you're a little kid or you're a young guy who's not into fighting, that scares you. Until I learned something when I got over. Walk right up to his chest and say, shut up, man. 9 times out of 10, they can't handle it. Empty vessels make the loudest noise, right? This world is empty, and they're shouting, and they're yelling. And it's interesting. Unbelievers don't like Jesus Christ, but yet unbelievers don't even have unity with unbelievers. A driver from another terminal pulled up behind me yesterday, and I know her for years. I knew her back in the 90s. Black woman, and we were talking, and we did the name of a certain individual at our terminal came up, another black woman who is the true definition of ghetto trash. She said to me, you know, she worked at our terminal. Nobody likes her. She's on leave right now for some personal stuff. But she showed up at the other terminal walking in. Yeah, I'm on vacation. She said the first thing that came out of everybody's mouth, including mine, is, what are you doing in here and who cares? We had a little talk, and I said, you know, I'm glad you see this stuff too, because I said, there's a lot of people at our terminal that don't like her either. And she said to me, that woman gives blacks a bad name. She said she has cheated on her husband multiple times. I said, really? I said, in our terminal, she talks about how she loves her husband, and she goes, that's bull. Right now, she's working somebody down there, working them hard. She said, you know, Pacific, if you're on vacation, you going to come out and hang out in the break room? I said, heck, no. Exactly. You know, this woman, I don't know where she stands spiritually, but she was accurate in everything she said about this individual. And I thought it was interesting that people who are legends in their own mind, that have a very high opinion of themselves, start asking others what they think about them. And they'll start rolling their eyes and shaking their head, and their tongue will start going cluckety, cluckety, cluck. This woman is old enough to be my mother. And she narrowed her eyes and she said, I'll tell you what, Pacific, that woman got crossways with my daughter who's in dispatch. And I walked right up to her and said, let me tell you something. I will kick your ass and I will shut you down right now. You may think you're all that, but don't you talk about my daughter that way, and don't you dare cross my path. Do we understand each other? I said, did she back down? She goes, she had no choice. I'm older, I'm bigger, and I'll tell you what, I don't put up with that disrespect. And this discussion launched into how the younger women today have absolute no couth. I was thinking when I was back in my 20s, I never would have gone up to a 48-year-old man or woman and got in their face and said the kind of things that these young snots are saying today. This woman that I'm referring to has been gone for several weeks now, and the comment has gone through our whole break room. Do you notice how pleasant it is in here without her here? And I said, oh gosh, yes. I said, when she walks in the door, I said a black storm cloud comes in the room with her, and a suppressive environment just suddenly descends on the place. It's interesting. Why is it that in workplaces, those aren't the people that quit? They stay for year after year. And then you ask the next question, how does management put up with this person? Because as rude as they've been in the break room, you know. And yes, I've seen her drive. And we're not even going to talk about that. I'm not one that narks on what other people are doing with their buses. And the reason is I don't want to be known as a narc. I adopted the philosophy long ago. Let them do what they do. They give themselves a long leash and they'll hang themselves on it. Now, if I see something that's clearly child endangerment and serious stuff, I'm going to definitely go to the training department and say, you might want to talk to somebody. But generally speaking, I will not rat out other employees unless, in the case of the break room, somebody mouths off to me or on the two-way radio. And it's just interesting. People in our society are offended at Jesus Christ, and yet, let's talk about John Deere, the green and yellow tractors. When I worked at a truck dealership on the edge of Denver and Commerce City years ago, John Deere came in to talk about insurance. They insured our company. And a spokesman came down and said, because we're insuring your company, we need to go over a few things that you must do to comply with the terms of our agreement. They weren't giving us health insurance, they're insuring the company. They're insuring the workplace, against lawsuits, stuff like that. This gentleman was not a Christian, but he said, you men in the shop and you men in the departments, in the parts department, they have your girly calendars with breasts showing. That is sexually offensive to a lot of women and even some other men who may have religious convictions. Take them down. I was sitting in on that meeting and the man says, oh, come on. I can't have my Snap-on calendar on my own toolbox. You can have anything you want in your toolbox. We just don't want to see it. You're in the business we're insuring. People got upset. And then he started saying, let me tell you a standard to go by. If it's something you don't want your daughter or your mother or your grandmother to see, you probably shouldn't post it at work. And some people said, we're just not going to follow that. And he very kindly smiled and said, we could choose to pull the insurance if you don't wish to comply. This was back in the 90s, and I thought to myself, isn't that interesting? That it always comes back to God and His principles. Always. Women who kill their children, calling it choice, become hardened and jaded, and some suffer from past post-abortion syndrome. You look at the whole gay thing, and you look at STDs and, butt sex, and more HIV is transmitted that way, hepatitis and who knows what, through the back door. And people just don't want us, they'll sit there and go, don't tell us, don't put your trip on us. And let's talk about my perspective. Let's talk about multiculturalism and diversity. Do the feminists think that their ideologies and their philosophies are offensive to me and it's not fair? I mean, they are sexist. They are. I hate that word misogynistic. I know it applies to males, but they are a form of misogynist. Women against men. By the way, let's do an indent here, shall we? I gotta turn off this heat because I'm getting on fire back here. Larissa had asked me to comment about MGTOW and how she's tried to make some comments, and the guys in MGTOW are cussing and using profanity at her. And I wrote her and I said, you know, I've dealt with them last summer, and I made it very crystal clear that I'm not behind their movement anymore. She mentioned that it is no different than feminism, and I said that. I said it's manistic, and let me make it very crystal clear. This is what our world does. We have a bunch of women acting like immature biatches today with their anti-male campaign, hating on men, and now men are swinging the other way, and they're going to do it right back. And I sit there and say, you know what? God said it is not good for man to be alone. That's one. Two, the Bible's very crystal clear that he made Adam and Eve. He didn't just make Adam. That nobody's superior to each other. But when we have a world that turns its back on God, we have nothing but ensuing chaos. Feminism is offensive to me as a conservative, born-again Christian man who believes a woman should act and carry herself as a lady. When we were sitting at the table yesterday, 3 of us guys and 1 woman, and we were all talking about dating. And one guy said, it has changed so much. They were all slightly younger than me, 40. She was 40. And I said, oh, dating is ridiculous. And one guy said, I've had women get mad at me when I pull out a chair for them or open the door or offer to pay for the date. They go, no, I'll pay. And he said, I'm old school. It's the man's job to pay for the date. I said, so am I. I said, I'll even hold the truck door open for her to slide in on the passenger side, you know, stuff like that. But we're talking about offense. Even the world that doesn't want to talk about Jesus Christ, when it comes to insurance, when it comes to legal, when it comes to you've just done something wrong, we're going to sue you and we're going to find where you blew it. It always comes back to God. If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you have nothing to worry about. I watch idiots speed around me all day, and I think not once is it going through their mind that if they hit somebody, they are at fault by sheer reason that they're speeding. Many of my viewers will laugh at that and go, you're ridiculous. Everybody speeds. Yep. And if you're speeding, that car that pulled out in front of you, what if you were going 30 instead of 60? I bet you wouldn't have hit it, huh? Who's at fault? Well, the guy that pulled out. No, you were breaking the law. People need to start looking at traffic in a whole different way, especially born-again Christians. When you look at the exacting requirements of the law and you read Leviticus where God has all these dietary commands dealing with mold and mildew, dealing with a woman's uncleanness, I mean, you start reading this stuff and you're like, you know, that's heavy. If I were to follow the Levitical period my whole life, I wouldn't even be thinking about driving a bus or anything. I'd be focused on, oh, did I sin? Did I have a nocturnal emission? Did I do this? Did I do that? I'm telling you, dude, when you really study the holy, a good analogy is look at how you drive just in a day. And I guarantee you, you've violated a traffic law, if not many of them, just in a day. Oh, come on, Pacific knows it's perfect. If you went 2 miles over the posted speed limit, you broke the law. People go, oh, come on, the cop. The cop doesn't allow nothing. No cop is going to pull you 2 over unless he's really having a bad day. But you still broke the law. A California stop you made that nobody else saw, God did, broke the law. When you made that lane change with no turn signal, broke the law. People don't like to think about that. But I think traffic is a good analogy of how we're the same way. People who think that they can be religious and goody two-shoes in a church and think they can merit God's favor are truly spiritually and scripturally illiterate and ignorant to the core. The law was written to show us that we cannot do it. Cannot, cannot, cannot. No flesh shall be justified in sight of the law. Paul said that. And yet we have people still thinking, I'm good enough. And Americans are kings and queens at this one. Well, people are basically good. I think that God's going to look at all my... What is your definition of good, lady? Being kind to your dog? Treating yourself to $5 coffee and getting in debt for that $65,000 SUV that you can't stop and yield when I'm in a crosswalk? When you're cutting off a school bus with no turn signal and he honks and you don't even bother to say, I'm sorry. Do you think that's good enough to get to heaven? Oh, but I have a college degree and I've raised two successful children. Two successful children. Let's talk about those two children. Also in debt. Lovers of money, lovers of materialism, thinking they're more elite than other people, also cutting off buses and driving like idiots in traffic. You raised good children? The problem with a secular society, their thinking is twisted. It is wrong. It says in the Bible they are darkened in their understanding. I'm sorry, but a good analogy is right here. Okay? Yeah, you can see me. But if I were to post this picture on a dating site, just like this, would a woman be able to really tell what I look like? Think about it. Not at all. But if I were to post this picture, a little more clear, isn't it? Until you're born again and you have the light of God turned on in your heart and your mind illumined by the Holy Spirit, your thinking will be darkened. And many Christians are shallow, diapered saints, complete with binky and rattle, that will not grow up. And they're thinking God has opened their eyes, but they're not applying themselves to study and exercising discernment and growing. What I see all day outside my windshield is I'm going, you know what? Just on traffic alone, everybody out there is going straight to hell. What, Pacific? No one follows the traffic rules. No one. Don't you? I've accidentally gone a couple under or over, even in the bus. We all do it. You're driving along and you're accelerating. Ooh, I just went 2 over, 3 over. But the difference is I catch myself and readjust. 20 over? No. But here's my point. Let's start using traffic to teach us about the holy exactingness of God. God doesn't just smile like Santa Claus and go, wink. It's okay, man. It's okay. God says, condemned. Pacific, how can you say everybody that breaks traffic laws goes to hell? It says submit to the governing authorities. Do a study on that. That means submit to the governing authorities and the laws they enacted and the signs that are posted. And you go to each state, they have a driver's manual. You shall not exceed the posted speed limit. Did you know in Colorado there's only one time you're allowed to exceed the posted speed limit? It's on a 2-lane highway. One lane going this way, one lane going the other. If you are affecting a pass, somebody's going slower than the posted speed limit, not over the speed limit, or not the speed limit, but you got a slower moving vehicle in front of you, and you signal, you get out into the oncoming lane, you have a right to speed until you can safely merge back to the right with signal, and then you resume the posted speed limit. That is actually allowed in the state of Colorado. But hypocrites think that, hey, he's going 65 and I want to go 85. You don't have the right. But this is what happens when you're dealing with people darkening their understanding. Do your own test when you get in your car. And when you do this, pay attention to your own driving habits and watch what you're doing. Do you come to a complete stop? I've wanted to take a camera and just stand there with a tripod right at an intersection. You know how many cars go like this? Here's the stop sign. I mean, rolling through it. You know what the law says? complete stop, and you're supposed to either have the bumper behind the stop sign post or the white limit line. Do you know what a driver examiner in Duluth told me? If you go over that line with your bumper or past that stop sign, you have technically run the stop sign. Oh, come on, I can't see around the... Nope. I can't see around the intersection either. Do you know what I'm taught as a school bus driver? And I do this in my pickup, and people get mad. Do you know why that limit line's there, people? Has any of you ever thought about why there's that white line? Well, it's for pedestrians. That's one. But did you know they put that limit line that in most cases, a large truck or large turning vehicle, if you're behind that line, he can make that left turn and not have to worry about his duals running over the hood of your car. I can't tell you how many times I've waited to make a left and some yahoo pulls 10 feet over that crosswalk and then he sits there. And I'm starting to turn, and what I do, here's the idiot, and I turn and I just pull up right there. And I just look. Okay, you can't go. You're going to have to back up, sport. And they get all pissy. And I just open the window and say, you see that white line right there? You're supposed to be behind it. And if you were, I could have turned. This little altercation here would not have happened. You're the bad, not me. Most people don't think about that. Women, men. Why do I mention this? Because when you start driving your car, start reflecting on your driving. And then you'll get an awareness of God's perfect law. To have any infraction is to be immediately separated from the presence of God. It says in the Bible, in Adam all die, in Christ all live. So use that as an analogy. But what we have now is a society and a world at large, especially Western nations. I love the people that are whipping in and out of traffic, speeding profusely, running red light stop signs, but they'll use their turn signal. That's a picture of the world. They'll screw people out of money. They'll be rude and look down everybody's, down their own nose at everybody. And those same people say, I never cheated on my wife. I love and adore her. Isn't that the secular world? They hold on rigidly that one good thing they do and ignore all this other stuff. And you know what? The Bible's the complete opposite. God's going to say, actually, you got a bunch of sins in the closet over here, buddy. That's why we need Christ. The sufficiency of the shed blood of Christ is sufficient to save us, make us righteous in the sight of God, sanctify us, hold us and keep us and deliver us to the residence of God the Almighty, the New Jerusalem, the new heavens and the new earth. New heaven and new earth. Got to be careful about plurality to something when there isn't. So focus on your driving. Did you make a complete stop? That's one. Do you use your turn signals all the time? Are you texting and driving? Are you on the phone in states that forbid it? Are you going the posted speed limit? If you violate any of those, what does a yield sign mean to you? You know what it means in Colorado? Wow, dude. I got a through lane and you just blasted right in front of me. Traffic alone will send everybody to hell. Everybody. What if I don't drive? You get my point. Everybody's got sin, and everybody sins and violates the law of God. If you don't think you do, look at how you do in traffic. Submit to the governing authorities. And that means traffic, and Christians don't like to hear that. Pacific. I heard this. I've heard numerous arguments. This one by a woman who was a friend, a ding-dong woman, co-worker, friend of mine. I remember when she came in the house, she had mass BO. And my then wife invited her over for dinner, and the minute she walked in the door, I was like, ooh, this is a professional, and she reeks. But I was kind to her and tried not to wrinkle my nose in her presence, and this woman claimed to be into God and all this, and somehow or another we were talking about the way people drive, and she immediately became very defensive and said, you know, Pacific, I don't think God cares about that at all. That's your passion, but that's not my passion. Do you notice how women love to twist up stuff? Wait a minute. This isn't about passion. This is about, do you have conviction that what you're doing is wrong? And do you feel that the Holy Spirit's poking at you and says, hey, you need to change that? He doesn't just poke at us for driving. He pokes at us on any violation of God's holiness. She went on to say that she goes across the Nevada desert at 120 miles an hour in her car. And I said, man, you're totally breaking the law. She goes, I just don't think God's concerned with that. There's nobody out there. I said, but God sees. Oh, come on, Pacific. Like he's going to, in eternity, he's going to say, you know, you were speeding across the Nevada desert. I said, any unconfessed sin as a Christian, he's going to point all of that out to you. All of it. And people laugh when I say that. The secular world has infiltrated the church. We're talking about offense. We're talking about Christians who walk around saying, we don't want to talk about doctrine and divisive issues. Why not? Feminists and feminism, through the vehicle of universities, colleges, and public school systems, are teaching young ladies to hate men, teaching young women that they can get stimulated by another woman, that man is not needed, that husband and the whole marriage thing is outdated, that being a homemaker is laughable, that to raise your children at home is just not glorifying or dignified, that women are basically going for complete dominance. And Christians are too stupid to wake up and see that and how offensive that is. Or women that just coolly and casually go off to Planned Parenthood and have an abortion, and the next day are in a bar drinking it up with their girl buddies going, you know, I feel pretty good. Really? You just murdered somebody. And those same women will scream at a male child molester or a man who rapes somebody, and they'll want him crucified. But they just murdered somebody. Darkened in their understanding. The world is very offensive. Offensive because they are saying a big middle finger, mile-high salute to a holy God and saying, no, God, we don't submit that marriage is between a man and a woman. No, God, we believe that tissue blob in my womb is my right to choose what to do with it. You don't have a right to tell me anything. It's okay to worship materialism, even over and against those that will never have the material goods you do, and you don't care. Materialism is a very self-serving false religion. We allow public schools to dominate with their evolutionistic, Darwinistic, wrong-headed thinking, the doctrine and teaching of evolution, and we as Christians just lay down and stomach it. And it's gotten so bad with all the noise that Dawkins and other fools are making, saying there's no God, that the church now is saying, well, maybe God could have used evolution. You sit down with the people in these churches and try to have an intelligent discussion about the fossil record, and they'll start going, la, la, la. You know what? It doesn't matter, Pacific. We're about the glory of God. Who cares? If you're about the glory of God, you want to start with the first verse of the Bible? You want to start with the first chapter of the Bible? You limit the glory of God when you telling people that they need Jesus Christ. You're running around telling everybody he could have used evolution in millions of years when you yourself contradict yourself when the clear, plain language of Genesis chapter 1. There was evening and there was morning the first day, and God created everything in 6 days and rested on the seventh, including dinosaurs and people on earth at the same time. So if you really want to go for the glory of God, don't pull the cop-out thing with me. Don't pull the euphoric, we're just going to be all about Jesus. Because Jesus is God, and Jesus wrote that word through man, and Jesus is the one who was there and created the earth in 6 days. And if you're going to sit there and say that's not important, you've just slapped a holy God in his face. And I know there are Christians that would run hamster Olympic argumentation against me right now for the statement I just made. And I would say, and they're wrong. Be an offense, but make sure you're the right offense. If you're speeding and cutting people off without your turn signal, you're an idiot. You could get shot. You could get in an accident. But me boldly declaring the truth, wow, I get shunned by a bunch of people that I don't want to be with anyway. Wah. You know, let's get real here. I don't want to feel comfortable with pro-abortion and pro-gay people and people on a militant, Nazistic, communistic, evolutionistic, feministic, humanistic, self-centered agenda. Man, I watch in my break room, or the break room, all these young women that are coming as paras and all that. And even the new ones come in, they don't socialize with anybody. They're really into themselves, and they're glued to this. Those same women will not acknowledge my presence, will not say, hello, Mr. So-and-so. Those days are gone. It's all about them. I remember one day I was having a discussion with another driver. I wasn't saying one word about Jesus Christ. We were having a discussion on how people have changed and morals have gone down the toilet. We didn't mention the Bible, didn't mention God. And this Hispanic girl was very, very, very stuck up and had all these little cheetah dot tattoos down her arm. She had skinny toothpick arms and had her push-up bra on and thought she was all that. She goes, are you guys going to talk about religion again? I said, we're not talking about religion, honey. If you don't like the conversation, there's many other tables you can go to. Bite me, you little twat. I'm sorry. I'm getting tired of the rudeness of these young people. And then we got Christians running around saying, we don't want to offend anybody. The reason America's not changing is because you're not being offensive. The Bible's very clear. To the one where the sweet savor, the aroma, the fragrance of life in Christ, the eternal life. To the other where the aroma of death. I'm sorry, start being a funeral smell to some of these people. Be there in your workplace so that they can be condemned every day when you're in their presence. Not because you're condemning them, but the Jesus in them that's saying, you want to deny me? You want to mock me? You want to laugh at me? Well, you ain't going to feel good around my followers, are you? I look at a world that rates itself so dang high today. And people are funny. When a cop car shows up in traffic, everybody suddenly goes under the speed limit. Pacific doesn't. I continue the speed limit and I'm passing everybody. And I'm like, what are these idiots doing? When the cop's not around, they're going 20, 30, 40 over. No turn signals, cutting everybody off. But when a cop shows up, now we're going to go under. That act alone right there is going to condemn them. You know why? Because the Bible and a verse came to my mind this week. Talking about the natural man. His conscience accuses or defends him. He'll be judged by his own conscience. If you're so convinced that speeding is okay and driving like a jerk is okay, why do you change when the cop shows up? Well, he can ticket me. Why do you change when the cop shows up? Why don't you argue with the cop? Why don't you cut him off? Why don't you slam on the brakes and turn to the Starbucks and say, hey, officer, screw you, man. Why don't you do to him what you do to me in the bus? You see, you know. Even these evolutionistic fools out here who are worshiping materialism and their SUVs and their mentality and their own self-centeredness, they know in their own mind there's a standard that needs to be adhered to. I'm so tired of people saying there are no absolutes. Well, if there's no absolutes, tell the cop that when he writes you a ticket. Hey, man, there's no absolutes. Survival of the fittest. People are hypocrites. And Jesus called the hypocrites the ones who were lost souls. Why are they hypocrites? Because they'll go 80, but they'll use their turn signal when they're making a lane change. Dude, you're not even doing what you're supposed to be doing. Why don't you just forget the turn signal too? People are funny that way. And I have learned more about theology, more about the character of God just by watching idiots out my windshield. Going that on traffic alone, everybody's going to hell that drives. Everybody. Pacific, are you saying that some pickup truck needs to die for the sins of the people? No. But the point is, God's law is so perfect. Forget the traffic, okay? Just shut that out. Let's go back to horse and buggies. Let's go back to when it was donkeys, okay, and camels. That no matter whether we drive or not, we sin every day in thought, word, and deed. I mean, a man is a walking disaster waiting to happen. Girl walks in the room, cleavage showing. Ooh, those are nice. Oh, I just lost it. I just committed adultery. There's a video posted on YouTube that Raging Bull sent me via Skype. 59-year-old white male walking in the streets of Manila for 6 weeks, pleading, looking for his wife and child, Filipina. They had some disagreements or something, and they just up and left. And he's begging her, I love you, please come back, please come back. I couldn't watch it all. It's heart-wrenching. I want to say something about the Philippines. There are Filipinos that are sinners just like us too, and they're very mean to their men. If they don't get their way, they'll stomp their feet, walk off, and disappear on them. They said the guy's unshaven. They thought he was homeless because he's so distraught. He's begging them to come back. Now, I admit we don't know what he did. He might have done something horrible that drove him off. We don't know. But based on my own experience with Beth, and by the way, I messaged her on Skype. I found her thing, and I see her lights on. It says available. I have left messages. No response. This woman doesn't want to do anything to close up the business or anything. And when we talk about sin, the whole world is sinful. When I talk about American women, yes, that's a fun little hobby of mine because we haven't heard a lot out there in mainstream media calling a spade with regards to women in America and Western nations. White women, black women, Hispanic women, and even Asian women. I want to say something about Asian women in the U.S. Asian women aren't very nice either. They really got a love for materialism and prestige, and they are downright rude. They won't even give you the time of day as a man if you don't have big income. And this is what happens is Western philosophy, Western democracy actually reveals what people really are inside. And when women who get to live in a country like this with all its blessings, the real them starts showing up, the real ugly them. This morning I had a little fun. I hit Scottsbluff, Nebraska, Craigslist, Cheyenne, Wyoming, Craigslist, Amarillo, Texas, Craigslist, Omaha. Where else did I go? Places around Colorado. It didn't matter if it was small town, big city. Fat women, piercings, tattoos, 420 friendly, kids in tow. I want a serious and committed relationship. And I'm sorry, I've got some cynicism over the years, and I look and go, you're not even seriously committed to keeping up your physique, and you're serious and committed in a relationship? I don't think so. You've got a child, and you're 23 years old. Did you really think when you had sex with that guy he was going to stick around? You got tattoos and piercings. One girl who was actually fairly decent looking, 23 years old, said she's a nerd and loves anime and loves Pokemon and video games. I'm not into watching TV, but I just love video games. And I'm thinking, That'd be a match for me, right? Look at the things I talk about on my channel. I read ads so different now. I just read the ads and I'm going, they're totally into Christmas. They're totally into their dog. They're totally into their fatness. And if you don't accept that, you better move on. And it's like, boy, the first couple of lines, it's like the big liability dashboard lights just start going. This is what happens when we live in a world that's darkened in their understanding and they're natural men and women and they do not comprehend the things of God. They're going to rate themselves by the standard that has been erected in their mind through a darkened understanding. People think because they're a good employee all day. Yeah, but then you go home and you're rude to your kids, rude to your husband, rude to this person. Kick the dog. When I hear Christians saying they don't want to offend anybody and they don't want to get into doctrine, then what are you going to church for? You know, I'm sorry. But even Maharani said something and I laughed so hard. She can't stand the song Kumbaya. And that whole Kumbaya has become synonymous with Kumbaya, my Lord. You know, let's all raise our hands and do the group sway and then walk out there saying, man, I just felt the presence of Jesus today. No, you didn't. You've used a worship service that has the same effect as smoking a joint does. Euphoric high. Do you know music does that? Music can release endorphins and all kinds of things in your body. That's why music is a powerful tool to get people to rebel, to get people to have sex, to get people to buy things. You notice they always got music playing in all the malls and stores you go to, even if it's crap? Have you ever gone into a store and there's no music? I mean, mom and pop kettle stores maybe, but your regular corporate stores, they got music going. Some of them it's blasting. You go to Abercrombie and Fitch and they got all this, you know, sleazy, sensual stuff going, and you smell perfume so strong and cologne so strong, and pictures of black and white, woman with a bra and an old man with a chest going like this, and you're going, gee, you think they're pushing something over there? When I look at things that don't make sense to me, and can I do something? I have to. I don't want my viewers to think I'm being mean, but I have to pick a little bit. Everybody knows Pandora. She hates my living guts. But she watches every one of my videos and is still leaving comments on my channel. I've got her blocked, so I don't know how they're coming through. Google is a weird thing. I don't see the comments, but I'm watching other people, my fans, commenting back to her. And I chuckle. Whether it's Gypsy or Pandora, for a while it was Lore Master and Minor People. I don't even hear from them anymore. I know nothing. In fact, I typed in Lore Master and I couldn't even find his channel, so I don't even know if it exists anymore. Most of my enemies that were hard on me were just, they're gone. They're focusing on other things. I don't even know what they're doing, and nor do I care. But occasionally I've looked and checked, and it's like, Lore Master took all the videos down about me. Interesting. And I remember he made a grand pronouncement. I am going to try to draw all of your viewers away from you, or get them to see how wrong you are. That's kind of like the atheist in France that said that by a certain date, and this was, I don't know, 1700s, 1500s, I don't know. He made a statement saying that by this year, the Bible will be gone and obsolete. He was hoping, because he doesn't believe in God. This is a true story, by the way. Did you know that when that man died, he had no heirs to inherit his place? Because a lot of atheists are quite miserable, and nobody wants to be around them. Not all, but a lot. And I don't know how this happened, but either it was given to or it was purchased by a group of people who turned his house into a Bible printing press facility. I love God's sense of humor. It's like you're reading in the Old Testament when it first got saved. And it says the Israelites went in. They were at war. They destroyed the enemy. They went into the sacred temple of Baal. They destroyed the temple. They destroyed the sacred stones. And to this day, the grounds are used as a latrine. And, you're reading along, and I'm like, that's funny. It's funny because God says your religion amounted to a toilet. It's defecatory, urinated, gross. We laugh at that stuff. But God takes false religion very seriously. It is a stench in his nostrils. And when we talk about Western civilization, people love to say, well, I'm not religious. I overheard a bus aide come up to the bus in front of me. I just got done talking to the driver. She's a woman who's really nasty, and she's actually had a change of heart and been much more pleasant, and we've actually had a conversation about God. Unfortunately, she was going on about Joyce Myers and Paula White, both complete fruitcakes that I would never buy or market or endorse them in any way. Excuse me. We had a pleasant conversation. I walked out the door of her bus because the students were coming out. I heard the aide say to one of her students, you might want to talk to her. She's really churchy. Churchy. Don't you love the world? You're really religious, aren't you? Not any more than you are. What do you mean? I said, you're really into the Broncos, aren't you? I said, you're pretty religious about it. They don't like the word religion being used to them, but that is what it is. A fanaticism for anything can have religious-like qualities. You can get so into something that you are literally adoring the glory of something, somebody, or a pursuit. So when they say you're religious, you say, actually, I'm not religious. I'm into a relationship with God. Oh, well, I'm not into religion. Neither am I. They don't like that because they like to have the alpha dominance in a spiritual conversation. No, you're religious. I'm not religious. No, I'm not religious. I have a relationship with God. You just spent 10 minutes talking to me about this new girl you're dating, and you are going on and on and on about her. I start talking about the things I've experienced with God this week, and that offends you, and you call me religious. What is the difference between me going on about God, who is a relationship with a being, versus you going on about this new girl you're dating? Oh, come on, man. I'm not into God. And I'm not into your girl. I don't want to hear all about your girl. But you really need to hear all about my God. Because your girlfriend can't save me, but my God can save you. I believe in using argumentation that's not always scriptural based, because when you're dealing with people who want to shred the word of God and say it isn't true, I just come back to them from simple common sense, and I'm able to trip them up and get them very fired up and angry to the point where they'll yell and cuss and stomp away. And I just go, that's funny. I was perfectly composed and you're having a meltdown over there. Would you like a binky? I think it's fun. I don't go around provoking people. But you know what's funny and laughable about the secular world? You even say one sentence. Man, I really like church this weekend. Oh, you're really religious, aren't you? That's the first thing you've ever even tipped them off about. You mention God and all of a sudden you're automatically dubbed religious. That's the world. That's a world system darkened in their understanding, led by Satan. See, the world system deals with our belief system in a couple of ways, but one of the common ways in American society is labelism. You're religious. That word, religious, is almost like saying the F word to an old woman without cause. Why is that? Because when they're calling you religious, they immediately put up this wall. You're religious. I'm not. Don't talk to me. No, I'm not religious. I'm religious in the sense that I get up every day, start my truck, and go to work. I mean, I do the same thing over and over again in many regards, but so do you. There's only one time that the word religion is used in the New Testament, and I'm not even sure if it's in the King James or in the Greek. It says, religion undefiled before God is this, to keep oneself unspotted from the world. and to visit widows and orphans in their distress. Let me be very crystal clear. Religion does and will and is sending people to hell. A relationship with Jesus Christ based on a proper understanding of why he came, what he did for you, and acknowledging that you cannot merit God's favor by anything else but through the shed blood of Jesus. Then you have a relationship. So why are we afraid as Christians? And I say we because I'm really not. I hope I've graduated from that elementary school, my dear Watson, because here's the thing. Excuse me. If we are afraid, what message are we sending to the world? The secular society, they don't care if they cut you off. They don't care if they offend me in traffic. They don't care if they run my stop sign and endanger little children. Which is worse and which is more dangerous, standing on doctrinal clarity in the scriptures or running a stop sign with little children boarding a bus? I think the answer is obvious. But in our upside-down society, secular men and women laugh and mock at speed limits and say, you know what? They just take a very, very trivializing approach to all the sins they do. But you start mentioning the God word anywhere, and they get fired up mad. Why is that? Because a holy, perfect God is offensive to them, because they love darkness rather than light, lest their deeds be exposed. When you start drilling in on people and say, you're a hypocrite, you're a liar, and you're lost, and you're headed for hell, and you point out their discrepancies in their driving and in their personal life, they really get mad. I'm going to tell people in America something very bold. If you as a church and you as a Christian are not offending people because of your belief in the truth, then you're not walking in the Holy Ghost. If you are not offending somebody somewhere, I'm not talking about obnoxious, rude, unkind behavior. If you as a Christian employee are standing around talking about Jesus and not doing your job, you're being an offense, but not to the glory of God. If you're being an offense to the glory of God and just taking your stand when it's appropriate to do so, whether it's in your workplace, turning in that black woman who's got the loudest mouth of all and things said, you know, I'm all about equality and affirmative action and everybody's got to love me. I'm the baby. You're the baby, all right. But if you cross my lines as a white male, I have rights too, and I'm going to complain and I'm going to get you in trouble. Why have we men? Why are we white people being pushed into a corner by the minorities? Because we won't want to be branded racist. The noise from certain African Americans and Hispanics is that you're racist, your white empires. Hold it, I'm not an imperialist. I don't even own a house. So where's my empire? My truck? Get real. The world is offensive, period. Self-centered girls today, which are being manufactured by the shiploads in this country, are offensive. When I am a man of heart, and I'm kind, and I have passion, and I drive my bus safely and smoothly, and care about serving my passengers, buying them candy bars, being polite to them, and I've got teenage girl after teenage girl that will not even say hi or acknowledge me when I daily say, hey, good morning, how are you? That's offensive. You think you're better than me, that you don't even have to acknowledge me? What am I, your robot? What is this, the Jetson? There's something wrong in an American society when mothers Even the teachers coming out to my buses. I had a black woman. I picked up a group of dancers from one high school to transport to another. I had a slender, on top of her game, black woman. Most of these girls, some were white, a couple were Asian, and some were black. I stand outside my bus. Most drivers do not. They sit in their seat. I stand outside my door and say, "Hey, how you guys doing? Welcome aboard, blah, blah, blah." Several of those gals, black and white, did not acknowledge me. I got on the bus, and I have to give my little evacuation speech, and I said, "Good morning, everybody." And one girl responds, and that black female teacher stands up. "Hey, he spoke to you. Show some respect. He said good morning." A black woman. I don't know if she's a Christian. I doubt it. Most of your educators in the public school are not. But when she stands up and is rebuking them for their lack of kindness, even she can't tolerate that. I've had teachers. Just yesterday, I had a group, little guys, say, "Thank you. What do you say?" He said, "Have a nice day." Say bye-bye. When educators are having to teach children to use manners, what is that saying about the mom and the dad, if there even is the two in their life anymore? My point in all of this is, Christian, don't worry worried about offending. When I was in Hibbing, Minnesota, I drove a route out in the country. I had K through high school. And that wasn't the route that I loved. I had this route, and those kids were rude. It was a country route out in the Minnesota woods. I'd pull up. Somebody had a half a mile of driveway to their house, and I wouldn't see them, but I'd hesitate a moment, then I'd see somebody running down the driveway. I don't have to wait. That is a courtesy on my part, because it makes me late through my route. Do you think they'd ever say, "Hey, thanks for waiting, man. Sorry about that"? Nope. They would not greet me. They would not say hi. These kids wouldn't talk. For me, there's something very uncomfortable about an American society when you're doing your job and you're trying to be polite, reach out, and do your job with excellence, and the people you're hauling are no different than boxes of freight and merchandise on a delivery truck. They're that impersonal, and they treat you as if though you're an automated driver that they don't have to acknowledge. That was one side of Hibbing. We had a driver get fired for various reasons. The company came to me and said, "This is one of our primo routes. These are parents we don't want to offend, and we thought you'd be the perfect man for the job." I was on that route for 1 week, and parents in Hibbing, stoic, cold, unfriendly northern Minnesota town says, "We don't know who this driver is, but you made a wise choice in putting this individual on, Mr. Michael, because our kids like him. He's a safe driver. He greets them. He's polite to them." And this is said by parents who won't even greet me when they're waiting with their child. They'll say, "Good morning." And she just stares. The parent. I said Minnesota's socially retarded. I stand behind that. I've had people from Minnesota write me and saying, "We're one of the friendliest states." Bull pucky. Montana's got you beat hands down. You know, there's still people in Montana that wear a cowboy hat. They will still greet a woman by tipping the hat. "Good day, ma'am." There's still, and yeah, we got speed demons in Montana, and we got rednecks in Montana, but out of all the states I've been, Montana still had the nicest per capita, more nice people than any other state I've lived in, been in, and traveled through. I remember I was in West Virginia, and I was young then. I was driving a 62 Chevy, and a guy about as young as me, when they used to pump the gas, and he went to give me my change bag, and I said, I gave you $40. He gave me like $1, and I said, I believe you owe me, or no, I gave him 50, and he chumped me, and I politely said, and he gives me this stupid, cheesy, crap-eating grin and says, oh yeah, I know that. Testing to see if I was paying attention. I'm like, that's good customer service there, bud. Not. My point is we're talking about offense, and we need to start unpacking this as Christians and say, who's doing the offending? Is it the church? Is it the world? Is it the feminists? Is it the evolutionists? The socialists that want to shred and dismantle the U.S. Constitution? Is it the corporate buffoons that get into their fancy cars and cut everybody off and have that I don't care about you mentality? Is it the Enron execs that help themselves to the kitty and all the money and the booty and walk out and leave all their employees high and dry? What are we worried about offending? Christians are spending too much time with the mushy, insipid, spoon-fed mush Christianity that wants to attract people into church by, we have the same kind of music. We have puppet shows and we have PowerPoint presentations. And I'm sorry, even at the church I currently attend, I watch the guys that are into the sound. This isn't like running a rock concert. But our church is not that big. And I watch a guy who's just into this. We're not a TV ministry. We're not the big time. And he moves a lever here, a lever there on a soundboard that looks like something that could run Eddie Van Halen in a huge arena, complete with the switches connected to the lights, the pyrotechnics and everything. And I'm like, we're in a church, and you just slid one volume adjust up and one down. Whoopee ding. And I ask myself, does this thing even do any good? And people get into that stuff. They get into that, and it's unnecessary. Gone are the days, it seems, on a majority basis. I'm not talking in every case. But people today just aren't really flocking to churches. Man, I've got to hear this guy because he cuts right through me. When's the last time you met Christians who go, I love this preacher. He steps on my toes, he steps on everybody's toes, and I love it. He pulls no punches. No. What do you hear today? Oh, they got great worship. Really? Present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God. This is your reasonable service of worship. Is that what's going on in your church? Oh, no, they mean the rock concert that's going on. Jesus is my acid. Jesus is my drug. Jesus is my all-time high. Sniff that religion, baby. Suck it on down. No laughing. I don't want any laughing about what I just said. We're supposed to be serious and not sacrilege, okay? Don't laugh. Joking. I'm tired of it. I remember one time I was driving in my truck when my son was little and having a conversation with my then wife, and I said, I'm tired of all these churches compromising. So we got Starbucks in a church, we got McDonald's in a church, and we were passing a bowling alley, and I said, shoot, why don't we start a Bowling for Jesus club? And I remember my son goes, Bowling for Jesus? He laughed because it's ridiculous. Or then you get the Calvary Chapel or the Vineyard movement. You know, no offense. I attended a Calvary Chapel. I used to like Chuck Smith out of Costa Mesa, but with every church, and they say they're not a denomination. Yes, they are. I believe they are. They are a denomination. They have a fingerprint that is synonymous with the whole Costa Mesa movement. I've been to many Calvary Chapels, and I used to be really caught up in all that. But they got some false teaching too. And one of the things I noticed with the Calvary Chapel movement is they wanted to put Jesus on a surfboard, Jesus on the beach, Jesus in a Southern California lifestyle. I remember when I was in a full heated, very uncomfortable night where my living quarters was at stake in the village of Moiwa on Lantau Island, and a Mormon Filipino woman who had a very hard-looking face, the kind of woman that when she put on that little gangster hat, I got a picture of her in one of my videos. She's holding one of those big iron rung handles and that big iron gilt-over door. Really cool. Plays across the street from her. And I liked her. But she was a toughie. She lost a lot of her femininity, and she did run a hair salon, but she was tough. She's yelling and screaming at the top of her lungs, trying to tell me that her Mormonism is the only true religion. And I said, do you have any peace? I said, you are shouting and you are angry and you are disturbing the entire village in which we live. I said, do you even know Jesus? And then she starts yelling in a very rude tone and over yells, who is Jesus? And I said, I'm asking you. I know who he is. Who is he? Who is Jesus? I didn't yell. I didn't call her names. I wasn't obnoxious. She told me she wanted me out at the end of my term. I said, okay. The very next day, I told you the story. I'm running my errands. She calls me at noontime when I'm on the tram headed for Shangwan to eat my chow fan. Did you find a place? No, ma'am. Why don't you forget about what just happened? You know, that happens when people are close to each other, and that happens. If you want to stay, you can stay. Do you want to stay? I said, if you would have me. Yeah, forget about it. That's the closest to any kind of an apology I'm going to get, because deep down inside, she had to stop and think, man, I'm acting like a fool. You're claiming to be religious. You're claiming you're part of the Mormon church, and you're screaming and yelling and cussing because I believe in eternal life through Jesus Christ. Stop worrying about being offensive. I confronted a brother once who was being a complete jerk, both at the bus company I worked at in Duluth, and everybody that knew him was having a problem, and they came to me and asked me to deal with him. I said, you want me to deal with Mr. Dan? I said, man, he's a tough nut to crack, you guys. After church, I walked over to him with his truck, and I said, can I talk to you a minute? And he had more demons hanging on him than I care to admit. He claimed he had some Native American in him, and he claimed he was a medicine man for his people. He was a medicine man. Oh yeah, the spiritual stuff, but not Jesus style. But I had to confront him on some stuff he was doing at the bus garage, offending people, and then telling everybody he was born again Christian. I said, you're out of line. And I wasn't rude or self-righteous. And he looked at me and in his typical Dan style said, well, I respect your opinion, but I don't seize it the way you seize it. I said, whatever, dude. What I said is truth, and I'm not backing down from this. He didn't talk to me again for weeks. And one day he walked up to me and he says, you know, I got to thinking about what you're saying, and yeah, you're right. I'm going to tell you something, Christian. Be offensive. Be yourself. And when I say yourself, not your selfish, rude, narcissistic self, but be the person God made you to be. And if it's like the guy at work, there are some people that do not like Pacific because I have what's called a fiery, energetic, passionate personality. And we've talked about the comments by Gypsy on my channel where she's saying, you're angry, you're yelling, Go to New York, lady. Go to New York City. And you'll see a lot more people like me than yourself. Some people are expressive. Some people are reserved. Some people are very vocal and bombastic. Others are scared of a gnat. And I've had to learn over the years that it is not my job to make everybody just like me. But I have zero tolerance for cowardice among born-again Christians. You might be more mild-mannered and soft-spoken. That's okay. But don't be a coward about your faith. You might be a little more shy and might not be as outgoing. That's okay. But don't you dare come to me and think you're going to earn my respect when you say, well, we don't want to get into doctrine. Excuse me. Paul told Timothy, teach what is in accord with sound doctrine, for the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but instead, having itching ears, heap to themselves teachers that will tell them what they want to hear. Hello, are we living there today? We don't want to tell a woman, hey, is that a service dog? No. Well, you can't bring it in Walmart. We don't want to tell a young woman, you know what? I was talking to you. Yeah, I know I'm just a bus driver, but I am an adult. Could you show some respect? Nope, we don't want to do that because we don't want to offend them. And I'm in a situation where I can't. The only time I can pull that rude issue is when I do have to confront them about something and they mouth off and say, don't you be rude to me, young lady. I'm the bus driver and you have no right to talk to me that way. Then I can put in my shingle. But here's the thing. I can't do a darn thing. Wow, I said hi to you. That's rude. I cannot force their kindness because their parents would call and I could be called in the office for that. And that's wrong. I should have every right to say, hey, do you know how to take the headphones out of your ear and say hi and acknowledge that I'm a human being, that I don't have to do this. I could just quit right now and say, I don't want to drive your butts home. You suck. No, the attitude of today, that's your job. It may mean my job, but I could be just a jerk like everybody else and hit every bump and hit every curb and go around the corner on two wheels, and I could do whatever I want, but I don't. How come with specifically young women today, they think that the world owes them a living while they sit on their velvet pillow and smart off to everybody? Because somebody was afraid of offending, that's why. How come Hollywood continues to promote garbage, violence, sex, profanity, foul stuff, of which all of us who are growing up in Western nations have picked up on all those bad habits because people didn't want to be offensive? How come feminism has succeeded and now they've gone beyond equality and are all about dominance, and people like Hillary Clinton are going to run for president, and we've got a country that would actually vote that loser of a woman in? Yes, I said that loser of a woman. See, the world looks at her and says, Pacific, she's a politician, you're a bus driver, get a grip. She's way more successful than him. She is going to hell, folks. And as a politician, she's doing absolutely nothing to the glory of God. Not one darn thing. And this world doesn't like it when we talk about that. They think we're kooks. They call us religious because the world has a way of dealing with things. And they get out that hot branding iron. Religious. Move over there, cows. Religious cows. That's the truth. We need to stop being intimidated by them. They're not intimidated by us. They're intimidated by Jesus Christ, but they're not intimidated enough to change. Go to your Bibles and start reading about the description of Armageddon, the Battle of Armageddon. And people are going to, Psalm chapter 2, let us break their bands asunder. And he who sits in the heavens shall laugh. He shall have them in derision. Can you imagine people with the audacity? Okay, I always go, how can a woman not back up her Audi when I'm trying to turn a corner? How can an SUV cut me off and then flip me off when they're in the wrong? Because these people are at war with God, that's why. And they're going to have the audacity, and they're going to have the same mind as the devil. I shall be like the Most High. And they'll be thinking, we can take this God down. This is easy. I'm sorry to be a little rude here, but I don't like this. I don't want to see this carnage because I'm not into that, but it would be tempting to walk by at the end of Armageddon where these people, their eyes have rotted out in their sockets and they're laying there dead, and I'll yell down at each carcass and say, how you doing today? Are you doing well? They're not going to be, excuse me. I am sorry for the cold, folks, but this thing has been a linger, and it's on its way out, finally. I thought it was gone. It's taken different stages. No. Those people that had those nice SUVs, those women that had those hot looks, and those guys, the spackies that wear their suits and ties, are all going to be there at Armageddon one day. If they could speak, they're not going to say, I'm doing well. No, they're going to be saying, I'm sitting in hell. People don't like it when I talk like this. Jonathan Edwards in the 1700s in New England preached a sermon that had people so scared they were holding the pillars in the church because they thought the very floorboards underneath them were going to give way and they'd fall. It was a revival. It was not a revival. I don't like that word. It was a movement of the Holy Spirit where people were born again, converted. I'm tired of this whole, the vineyard's dead, but the Toronto blessing, the vineyard, that mushy Christianity where their worship, their whole band in a church setting was a bunch of loud drums, a couple of loud guitars, and a couple of cheap Casio keyboards with their sounds, come just as you are to worship. That right there is so false that is an offense to a holy God. Nowhere does it tell us to come just as we are to worship. Come just as you are to saving faith, yes. But man, if you've got sin in your heart, don't you dare come into the presence of God and start praising Him. You better repent, and you better confess your sins and get your heart right so that you can worship. Our American culture has taught the wrong thing about worship, and they are lying to us. It is not about rock music. There is no difference with the song Dancing Queen by ABBA. You're in the mood for a dance, a little bit of rock music. There's no difference between that euphoricness and the stuff that goes on in modern praise bands. And I'm going to say something that will be offensive to those that are really into the whole Christian rock movement. The Christian rock movement has produced absolutely nothing that is even remotely as good as what I call the American classics of rock and roll. America, Gordon Lightfoot, the Eagles, some of the classic stuff that people got into back then. Christian music has never even rivaled that. It's been insipid. It has had a huge lack of talent. Michael W. Smith has been fraught with compromise through and through. He caters to teenagers mainly through his euphoric platform and a friend's forever. Oh, teddy bears. I'm sorry. That isn't Jesus. And those same teenage kids and these same American women are not going to sit down and read something called The Attributes of God or Knowing God by J.I. Packer. They're not going to crack into theology where we're so moved by the truths of Scripture and the profoundness and the depth of a perfect holy God. They're not into that. They're into their materialistic comfort life. And they want their Christian music in their elevators and in their cars. And they want to walk around with their little K-Love bumper stickers and think that that's true spirituality. And then if I walk into a room full of those Christians that are talking about that and say, I don't even listen to Christian music, I can't stand it. He claims to be a Christian and he doesn't like Christian music. That's right. I claim to be a Christian. I don't celebrate Christmas. I don't endorse it. I believe any Christian that does is sinning. What did you just say? Any Christian that's celebrating Christmas is sinning. It's a pagan holiday. Putting up the tree? Read about the tree and the origins of it, and the wreath, and the Yuletide, and the Yule log, and all that junk. I still do not understand how Americans can be so dense. I was listening to a song by Killers the other day. I'd actually had the album when I lived in Spokane. It's funny. Sometimes you listen to music and it takes you right back to where you were living and the time you were in. Boy, you talk about a lonely, tough time. Are we human? And I thought they were saying, or are we dancers? No, are we human? Or are we dancer? My sign is able. We are dancer. Humans aren't even being human anymore. They're being atrocious. And when you see this huge disconnect from the business world and the church world, and I'm telling you, plain Jane woman, I remember going into a truck business that makes the box that you put on the chassis of the truck, you know, with the slide up rear door, the cargo vans and stuff like that. Plain Jane woman, long straight hair, simple pasty white skin. And you would think, and then she's got a tattoo right here. And you're like, boy, that's the last person I'd think would have a tattoo on them. And these people are all shy. You know, you go, hi, how you doing today? Fine. We got a tattoo. We're bold about that, and our cleavage is showing. Do you know that I've seen a dichotomy, and I haven't been to theological school, and yes, I know my hair's a mess. If it gets long enough, we're going to put it in a ponytail. Ooh, yeah, and then I could have a pixie. Look at this. Just do it in a bowl and have a pixie. So, I'm shocked at the dichotomy that I've noticed over the years. Go into an office place with a bunch of women, and they will not say anything that offends. I walk in and say something that's not politically correct, and you'll watch the women suddenly go, looking down. Oh, I can't believe you said that. Those same women will get in their cars and cut people off and drive like banshees. Why is that? Because you can fool people of what you are and who you are until they see how you drive your car. And the minute I see these women being all conservative at church and they wear their nice clothes and they won't say anything, even in a church setting, that corporate mentality among women in office buildings goes on in the church. The church is not changing the society. The society is and has changed the church and put a muzzle on it. Not just with political correctness, but it has backed the church into a corner where women and men are too busy trying to find a way to relate to this world so as not to offend, but yet draw people to come to the church because our church is so wonderful. Are there barf bags on this flight? Because I need one. If there are none, give me the one parachute that's on the plane. If there is one, I will open that back door and I will jump. And I'll take the chances of where I land, okay? I have no tolerance. I have no sympathy or empathy towards Christians that want to make a bold statement like that. Well, we don't get into doctrine. You need to. And you better start with the first chapter of the Bible. And you better determine that if that doesn't mean day and that's not true, then partner, take that book, throw it in the trash can, quit going to church. Because that's all you're doing anyway. You're denying the very Word of God. You're denying the original meaning of the Word of God. And you're walking around living like a Christian atheist. And you're running around trying to think that if I just behave in such a way that people will just be irresistibly drawn to me and say, what must I do to be saved? I see kids drowning in video games. I see kids drowning in pot and drugs and sex and booze and all kinds of craziness going on in this world. They're not going to look at you because you're a nice boy that wears a suit and tie on Sunday morning and go, I want that. I can't believe it's not butter. Sorry. People like me, and not everybody's like me, but I force a decision. Let's take a ship in the Arctic. They're called icebreakers. Do you know that if the ship were to have an actual human personality and that ship says, well, I don't want to offend, I don't want to make waves, you wouldn't have an icebreaker anymore. you'd have a ship locked in by the ice. It isn't moving. No, an icebreaker rams full speed ahead, rides up on the ice, collapses it, backs up, rides up on the ice, collapses it. That's what Pacific's doing. I push my bow right into somebody, and I push them to make a decision. Say, don't tell me this. You want to treat me rude? I believe in affirmative action, too, and I believe in equality. You're stepping on my boundaries and my rights, black woman. Stop it. I respect your right to have rights, but I also have rights. And if you're going to step on mine in the name of your ghetto mentality, I'm going to fire my gun in your direction. No, that's not a threat to shoot. It's a battleship term. Leave me alone. I'm sailing my ocean. I'm patrolling my section of the sea. But if you get into my sea and you fire a volley across my bow, I will swing that turret on that forward deck, and I will go, and that will send a message. I won't start anything, but I'm going to fire back. And I'm going to make sure that when I fire back, that shell's going to land right on your deck and blow the forward magazine right out from under you. That is Pacific's philosophy, that I will push back when I need to be pushed. Okay? You're going to step on my rights. I'm tired of Christians that believe that we're not supposed to be like that. That this gentleman at work who comes in with his little bag of organic food and he talks about diet and this and that, and he's 6 foot tall and he's 65 years old, and I look at him and I go, and he'll just say, God bless you, brother. Keep being a light, brother. But when he hears me say something to somebody else that's got a little bit of an edge to it, and he tries to tell me that, we're just supposed to show the light. And the reason this discussion happened is we have a survey that we do every year, and I said to somebody else, and he overheard it, I said, in that survey, I put my heart, I said, there's some things that need to change around here. And he immediately jumps and butts into my conversation. He says, brother, we're just supposed to be the light. We're not supposed to confront. I said, no, actually, I said part of being the light is holding up a mirror of truth and saying, hey, you're telling us to be this way, management, but you're not following the same. Well, but that's the world, brother. And that's the mentality the church has taken. Now, I want to be very careful because I get into a dichotomy here. Focus on the Family spent millions of dollars petitioning senators and congressmen to change legislation. That's a waste of money. Pacific is not advocating using money to finance reform. You use that millions of dollars to preach the truth and get it global. I'm tired of churches, including my own. Now we've got somebody asked where that money came from. I will tell you where that $5 million came from. By the way, they've got $10 million sitting in a savings account right now. They owned a high-rise. I don't know how they acquired this way back in the 60s or 70s, a high-rise, and they were going to get retired missionaries and help people. It was supposed to be under the guise of ministry. I think it was a 10-story building. It needed some extensive repairs, and the repairs were more money than the church actually had in the till, so they sold it for the bill of sale of $10 million. Since that has happened, there's been sharp disagreement about what to do with that money from all members of the congregation. Now they're going to add a $5 million expansion on the church. I don't even know what it's for or what it is. We've got a school that's attached to the church. We've got the church. And right now, as I see it, we're not even at full-blown overflowing capacity. So I don't know what they're building. I haven't paid a lot of attention to it. I just know that it's pushed its ugly bow into our Sunday school classes, where the teacher, before they get into the message, start talking about all the disagreement, talking about how people said, why are we sitting on $10 million in the bank? And then the pastor says, no, we don't want to use that. We want the congregation to provide this $5 million so we don't have to dip into that. And I'm like, okay, why are we doing this? If you really feel that that's what God wants you to do, you sold the building, use the $5 million, that's half the money in the bank, and fund the project. Why are you going to the congregation and asking them for money? This is the kind of stuff about American churchianity that I really get tired of. Because I'm not a member, I'm not going to get into that issue with that church. I just shake my head and go, these people are dead. Not in their sins, but they're dead. They're devoid of warmth, love, and passion. I've seen that all through this church. Now we're going to ill. And I heard the preacher say, we need to be an outreach to the community, and this will be a great opportunity. We have a Lakewood, Wheat Ridge, Arvada culture where people are just numb. They wear dowdy clothes. They get caught up in their materialism and their dogs and their boring lifestyle. They come to church and radiate that same mentality. There's no love, no warmth, no passion. How you doing today, Pacific? I'm hanging in there. How are you? I'm doing well. Of course you're doing well. You got your SUV, you got your retirement. Life is good. If you want to live in a cardboard, boring American mentality box. But don't tell me you have a passion for Jesus. Don't tell me you care about me. The dean or principal of the school asks the same question. You still driving that bus? The next time he does that, I'm going to say, how many times and how many weeks do you got to ask that same question? Do you care about me and my life? I'm going to do that. And trust me, I will be looked at as the bad guy for responding that way. Or approach B is, are you still running the school? Are you still the principal? How's it going being the principal? Cut the cheap chat and let's get real, folks. Let's take off the gloves. I know they don't care. But even in cultural Christianity, we've been taught, well, I'm going to feel good about myself because I'm going to be nice to Michael today. Fakely so. People are like that. They walk out of the church. I fellowshipped. What? We didn't have one conversation about God or what I'm really going through or about what you're going through. You're not going to do that. Because you're too busy singing, as long as I got my suit and tie, I think I'm pretty good with God. How many of you have seen that? Or let's go to the contrast. Let's go to the vineyard, where there's a little more expression, not necessarily passion. Come, just as you are to worship. You just had sex with a girl last night. You're coming to church just as you are to worship. With that, all that going through your mind, how hot she was, how awesome it was, and you're going to worship God? No way. Not by God's definition. Purify your hearts. You sinners, cleanse your hands, or wash your hands. Cleanse your minds, you double-minded. Wash your hands, blah, blah, blah. I admit I've come to worship, not fully dealing internally with the sin in my life. I have often said, and I will say it again, that we need to go to church. I was looking to see, I'm still not used to the sun not coming up, and I'm so used to saying, hey, where's the first light? If we don't honestly assess ourselves, and we become so conditioned that women can be flakes, women can be narcissists, materialists. They can come to church and they can actually walk out of there claiming they had a worship experience with God and how great it was. And I can look you right in the eye and say, no, they did not. How can you take an American white woman who can be stuck up, rude, look down her nose at everybody, and yet she comes to church on Sunday morning with some Christian rock and say that that's worship is pleasing to God? How does that square? How can a black community in Denver walk around with the F-you, mofo, biatch mentality, foul, rude, and those same women will go to church and they'll get into that soul style choir singing and walk out and treat everybody like a bunch of, just horrid. Because our culture has made it comfortable to do so. We have a dispatcher. She's a black woman. And she always greets me when she sees me. How you doing, brother? She'll reach out and touch my hand. that's a true saved woman, because she knows we're family. We go to a lot of churches in America today, and I tell you what, and I'm going to say something that's very damning about my own race. Black people, Asian people, and Hispanic or Mexican people will stick together better than white people. White people embraced materialism and independence more intensely than anybody else, race-wise, ethnically speaking. I had a Mexican friend in high school. We went to Baghdad, Arizona, where a lot of his family lived, mining community. I remember as we were driving up the hill, and before we get to the crest of the hill where it looks down on the town of Baghdad, Arizona, he says, "Look for the house with the red roof. That's my family's house." And I thought he was serious. We go over the hill, and every house is roofed with Spanish tile, and I'm like, "Paul, that's funny." And he laughed. His family welcomed me like I was one of their own. They put on a feast of tortillas and burritos and tacos and the whole 9 yards. I saw love in that family. He wasn't a born-again Christian. I saw that they could sit down on the couch, put their feet up on the table, and everybody was comfortable with each other. I've gone to Bible studies. There was a couple in Spokane that went to South Hill Bible Church. They're gone now. They moved to, where in the heck was it? Some place in Oregon, some small town. She was a secretary. She was a Mexican woman, very uptight. I remember when I first called the church, she was somewhat rude. And I'm sorry, but I did have a heart-to-heart with her husband one day, and I said, I'm sorry, but your wife is not very nice. She's very cold as ice and rude. But they had a Bible study at their house. And their house was your typical American museum with the antiques and the hardwood floors and nice rugs and the restored alcoves and arches. Very beautiful home. And I watched other people of their like mind invited over. The cutesy, very into herself woman who takes her shoes and socks off and curls up on the couch and looks cutesy and is pontificating on things. And she looks at life, that life is so wonderful and peachy and perfect. And one day I said, actually, there's a lot of problems out there. She wanted to dispute me, and I said, you know what? From the platform from which you sit, life looks good, but get down here in my shoes, walk down my streets, and I will show you reality. She didn't want to talk to me anymore. But the woman of that home, I liked her husband. He was a nice, down-to-earth guy. But even he said to me, there's no reason you should go to Hong Kong. There's no reason you can't find a good white woman right here in Spokane. I said, Norm, I tried. It doesn't exist. You start telling white people that and they think, this guy's cuckoo. There's something wrong with him. More and more people on YouTube are saying, I've tried to have these discussions with my parents and they think that I'm messed up. One person wrote me and said, my mother's starting to see what I'm talking about. We're living in a day and age, folks, where people are not, they just don't want to believe it. They don't want to believe the truth. They don't want to believe that there's actually something wrong with most white women in America today. Let me say that again, that there's actually something wrong with most white women in America today. They have not been transformed by the renewing of their mind as Jesus talks about. They've been transformed by a cultural dominance that through Hollywood, through rock music, through the philosophies in school systems, complete from Head Start or ECE, early childhood education, all the way up to your full-blown Ivy Leagues, there's an agenda, and it's not to promote the glory of God. It is not to promote selfless, heroic sacrificial living. It is not to promote our U.S. Constitution. It is not going to promote our founding fathers. Instead, it's a system that is keeping the gap of racism and the walls between ethnicities high. It is sexist to the core, where now they're teaching women that you don't need a man, that a man's a piece of refuse that can be thrown in the dumpster, while you're the great one because you're sexy and you have a pair of boobs and nipples and you're better than everybody else. That animals and the creation is worshipped, not the creator. A system that encourages people to act like monkeys because they evolved from monkeys. A system that says survival of the fittest until you start punking on me, then I have a problem with it, hypocrisy thinking. A system that is teaching people that communism is socialism is better than the Constitution that we have. A system that is very comfortable with churches being on every corner in America as long as you don't talk about Jesus Christ, hell, and sin, as long as you don't confront American women, as long as you don't confront abortion and homosexual marriage, as long as you don't offend anybody. We're perfectly comfortable with churches and religion. In fact, we encourage you to be religious because you can have your little group and have friends and support. We're all for that. The world is perfectly okay with churches, folks. The world is okay with you talking about God, but don't talk about God's word and don't talk about Jesus Christ. The world, I watched a car the other day in front of me, 2 bumper stickers, one on the left that said Obama Biden and one on the right that said Free Tibet as she's driving her Volvo. And I laughed and I thought, I'll bet you she's never been to Tibet, because this is all over Denver. They're what you call the granola bar, new agey freaks, Democrats, that all think that, Tibet, how oppressive. I thought about the contradiction of 2 bumper stickers on opposite ends of the bumper. Obama Biden on the one hand, who is very much, many people are calling him a dictator. He's very much socialistic, which is one step shy of communism. And yet we've got Free Tibet. And I want to get a sticker that says Free America that looks just like the Tibet sticker, complete with yellow and the red sunburst on it. The hypocrisy of unbelievers, even in their bumper sticker theology, just amazes me. Lady, you don't know the first thing about freeing Tibet. Why are you worried about what China's doing that has no bearing on you whatsoever? And you're not even, you're straining at a gnat over here. Now, I'm not minimizing what Tibet's going through, but bear with me, people. Bear with my folly and my thinking. This sucks. Tibet has no bearing on that woman driving her Volvo in Denver, living in her $500,000 house. She hasn't raised any money. She hasn't done a darn thing with freeing Tibet. But we bought a bumper sticker. What is she saying to the people around her? What is the point? It's just that. I want to be noticed. I want to be noticed as one of the Denver kooks, liberal, hypocritical to the core. I voted for Obama, who's wrecking the Constitution. Obama wants to destroy the very life that you have, lady. You're white. He called us empire builders. His father did, excuse me. Obama doesn't want everybody having a Volvo and a $500,000 house. Not only are you hypocritical in having 2 opposing viewpoints, free Tibet, but endorse a communist dictator. Obama is not democratic. Obama is not a constitutionalist. Obama is not a Christian at all. Oh, I said it. I said 3 very offensive things. Kiss my butt, PC people. Kiss my white butt. I will say what I need to say. Because you know what? I'm sinful. I'm full of problems. But I am authorized to speak because I have freedom of speech granted and guaranteed by me by the U.S. Constitution. But more importantly, even if they shred that document and put it in a shredder, Pacific still has the authority by God to speak. People are writing me all the time. They can't believe I'm bold in my views and can't believe YouTube hasn't shut me down. I sometimes wonder the same. They might try to if I had millions of views per video. I don't know the heart of YouTube. It appears to me that YouTube seems to be fairly democratic, that they allow pretty much anything to get on there. People using the F word, people punching people in the face. And I don't like that. But the same freedom they give them, they give to me. And I praise God for that. And the day may come when they say, Pacific, you're out of here. Use the medium while you have it, folks. I saw a bumper sticker yesterday that I have not seen. A young woman was driving her expensive SUV, and I was shocked. Shoot more, bitch less. A woman sporting that, and then a U.S. Marine Corps sticker on the right. That's offensive to me. It's offensive to me that women are in the U.S. Marine Corps. Can't say that around here because their granddaughter's in it. Is it the will of God for women to be in the U.S. Marine Corps? I don't think so. Or the military. Do you notice how women don't want to raise children anymore? They don't want to be home and cook and bake and sew and actually mentor their children to be God-loving, manner-driven, success in the right way oriented people. They're shedding that. And the world is upside down. We praise a woman that makes it through the Marine Corps. And then the woman is a hobby, as a sidebar. So he says, I think I want a man in my life now. A man who's going to marry a Marine Corps woman. That'd be a great union. Who's going to control what? My views are not popular in the secular world. It's not even popular among the secularized cultural Christian church in America. Many of these people in the churches are born again and they're secularized. Watered down, milk toasted down, backed down. They look at a guy like me and think I'm a frickin' bull in a china shop, and I'm not. You think D.L. Moody and H.A. Ironsides and Jonathan Edwards would have got anything done if they followed the modern philosophical thought that is dominating our culture today? D.L. Moody says, well, I don't want to offend you. These poor people, they got a problem with alcohol. We don't want to offend them. Oh, he nailed their drunkenness, and so did Charles and John Wesley. They nailed it. That's why churches were birthed. That's why movements were started. That's why bars shut down. That's why back then there was no separation of church and state being yelled from the corners. And the atheists were whimpering in the corner going, oh. And the church was moving forward and doing something. And there was nothing anybody could do about it. The feminists weren't even around then. Because even back then, women knew to keep their silence. Anytime you have material prosperity, and China's going to experience this as well. When you have materialistic influence, people think that they have rights, even if they don't. When they start getting comfortable and too big for their britches, and the more you sit on your velvet pillow at home, the more you can start picking at issues. I saw in Minnesota, retired people that sit in their house all day bitching. They just stare out the window watching the neighbor mow 1 inch over into their yard because there were no fences. Gertrude, Mr. Softitch mowed 1 inch over his property in our yard. Oh, Howard, I'm tired of that. What's this world coming to? Neighbors don't even show respect anymore. I saw that on 2nd Street South in Virginia, Minnesota, 2 blocks from Wasabi College. This is what happens when people get comfortable. And the real problems in the neighborhood, the kid behind me that set fire to the church, almost burned it down, didn't. Vandalized it, stole stuff, busted things. And his mother's attitude, big deal. These kids would snowmobile through my yard, throw beer bottles in the yard, and I went to try to do the right thing and said, hey, could you guys stop this, please? And all these old women and all these neighbors came to me saying, oh, we're glad you're taking on Miss Peliquin. Yeah. Do you know what? We are looked at as the bad guy. The neighbors all got behind me. But when those people who were causing the most problems in the neighborhood started pushing back and going to the other people's houses, then they all backed down and were scared. There was a lady that lived next door to this woman, a Christian woman, who called me and said, I cannot stand these people living next door to me. Their kids are bad. They have parties. They keep me awake. They pee in the alley. They make noise. They throw bottles everywhere. Pacific, I'm scared. Jeannie, call the police. They were too afraid to do that because they didn't want retaliation. We live in a society. We live in a society where we are letting evil triumph from a secular level to a Christian level to a bunch of mamby-pamby Christians saying, well, you know, you should have just been a light in that neighborhood. Tell me. If I just mind my own business, never said anything about the beer cans and beer bottles in my yard and all the noise, and then my wife being woke up who's coming down in the basement saying, I can't sleep. Would you do something? What do you want me to do? Go back there and yell at them? It won't do any good. All I can do is call the cops and they can bust it up and send them home. And they did. But there are Christians who say, well, we don't want to rock the boat. It's not our job. We can't expect them to act like Christians. So we just sit back and say it's okay for them to be monsters. Sometimes being the light, you're going to shine it in somebody's eyes and it hurts, okay? Sometimes being salt of the earth, salt flavors meat, but if you put salt in the eyes, it stings. Anybody swam in the ocean and open your eyes and The neighbors don't care if they offend. They don't care if they vandalize a church and throw crap in our yard and wake everybody up. And we don't want to talk about Jesus and doctrinal issues. Even Christians among Christians, well, you know, we need to concentrate on the things we agree on and not the things we don't. You know what? Take that insipid ball of garbage and put it in the dumpster where it belongs. I want a Christian that I can level with and say, no, I don't believe in that. Sorry. I don't agree with you. I think you're scripturally way off. And if they don't want to hang out with me, good. They're not doing me any good anyway. I like putzing with this little thing. You know, you can't change the battery in this unless you take 15,000 screws out and go buy a battery that's worth more than this little promo keychain. But it works, you know. You push the button down and there you go. Am I speaking truth, viewers? Am I touching a nerve here? Am I getting to the heartstone of something? Are we getting right down into the engine room of this American ship and saying, hey, we got some gauges that are reading funny things down here and there's something wrong? Yes. I don't believe we can pick every battle and fight it. But unfortunately in America, from the workplace to the church house to the schoolhouse to the workplace to the roadways, we're kind of overwhelmed today. And I've asked God, could you please put me in a position where I could best utilize the gifts you've given me? Because I'm not going to go on a campaign to fight bad driving. It's moot. Do you notice in the U.S. that the only things that happen to really affect change that hurt people are done against Christians and conservatives? They're not going to take on the Democrats. They're not going to take on the majority of bad drivers. We're going to focus on CDL drivers only and make them jump through hoop after hoop with physicals, drug tests, this and that, while people in Denver smoking pot can get in their car after having smoked a doobie. And that's DUI, by the way, driving under the influence. We can let a bipolar woman who didn't take her medications have a driver's license, or a manic depressive get behind the wheel. And we don't think anything about that. A bipolar woman who's operating on emotions is more dangerous than a kid with a loaded gun in a shopping mall. Yes. The hypocrisy of our society shows up every day, and I just shake my head and go, it's amazing. You try to communicate what I'm communicating to you now, my viewers, into this society. They'll laugh, mock, write it off. They don't see it. They don't get it because they're doing the things I'm talking about. If the people of God don't take a stand, I'm not talking about pickets and protesting, but if you don't take a stand in your sphere, there are Christians who say, well, you're just going to drive other Christians away from you. Good. I want to. If they're not going to look at themselves and hold the mirror of truth up to their life, I don't want to hang out with them. I'm not interested in folding my hands in my lap and sitting like a little girl in a group full of men and women, and got to be careful that we only talk about superficial niceties. Excuse me, I'm in church. Can I talk about the week I had and how I need prayer because this week sucked? And the more I see humanity, I'm getting deeply discouraged. No, you cannot talk about that. We're going to talk about the new deck we had installed. The new SUV purchase we made. Just to hear over and over, I'm doing well, how are you? How's your son? Oh, he went off to college. Oh, isn't that wonderful? Yes, he made the honor roll. Who cares? Another Christian brat. Jerk. Self-centered. It's the same old, same old, same old. And a guy like me comes along, I would never do it. But it would be so fun to go into a church and say, excuse me, Pastor, you're not preaching today. Sit down. I'm taking over. I am mutinying the bounty. You're not telling this people what they need to hear. You're preaching to the choir. We're talking about homosexuality and abortion. We're all on the same page there. Let's talk about the cliques, the attitudes, the materialism, the narcissism, the lack of warmth, the lack of passion. Let's deal with these white, stuck-up, dowdy women that think that they're all that in a bag of chips. Let's deal with the men that aren't being men and having a pair of balls. Testicles is a proper word, and saying what needs to be said and confronting and convicting right here. Let's stop having Bring a Friend Sunday and having 3 weeks of special glossy announcement inserts in bulletins. Bring a friend to church. I don't want to bring a friend to church. I don't have any here. And if I did, I would be embarrassed to bring them in here. I'm a big boy and I can sit and listen to truth. But if I were to take an unbeliever and bring him in here, he would say, I don't want anything to do with this Pacific. These people, they suck. I would like to see a pastor step on the toes of his own congregation, including the biggest tithers in his little circle of buddies, and let him have it. But we don't. Pacific has had fans that praise me, and then they start saying something, and I've had to confront them. And others have written me saying, wow, that guy really supported you, and you just banned him. Because he's being a jerk, and he's not quitting. That's why. Some have apologized, some have repented, some have recanted, some have gone away in total anger. Some of them went over to MGTOW. Hey, have fun on that sinking ship, because it's sinking. Pacific is interested in truth. And Pacific's interested in truth even to me. I know I fall short. And the reason I point out others that fall short is because they don't seem to see it or think it or care. I wonder what would happen if our preacher got up tomorrow morning and said, we need to address some real problems in this congregation. We're comfortable, we're materialistically satisfied, and we are not only not welcoming people that aren't just like us, we're just flat out ignoring them right in our midst. You don't want them in your home. You don't want them in your dinner setting. You don't want them in your circle. And then you sit there and go up and fakely say, how are you today? Not really caring to hear the real answer. You have no passion for God. You know the right theology. You run the Christian school. We got teachers that teach, but I just don't see a passion for Jesus in here. No, that's not going to happen. Churches have become business. If you offend the congregation, you lose financial contributions, you lose a congregation, and you run yourself out of a job. I'm okay with that, because the ministry should not be a living. The ministry should be a calling, and there's a difference. God will meet your needs. One man I respect, Medina, Ohio, can't remember his name. His first name was Bill. I went in and had a meeting with him because I really respected his preaching. I said, man, this is a pretty country club church. He says, oh, gosh, it is. He says, we got a lot of stuck-up, comfortable people in here. And he says, I'm going to preach what this church needs to hear, even if I'm the last man on the staff or in the congregation. I say, good for you. He says, hey, are we called to tell the truth, or are we called to impress everybody? And even among evangelical, independent, fundamentalist Baptist churches, they also fall to their own humanity of, well, we don't want to offend them over there. The Bible says to exhort, rebuke. I did a spiritual gifts test years ago, and I was told that I had the gift of exhortation/prophecy. I've taken that test several different places, Arizona and I think I did it in Colorado, and I did it in Minnesota. They came up the same every time. People who are not into exhortation or prophecy, they have a twisted view of the events of Revelation. There needs to be a difference between boys and girls. Blurring of the lines is not acceptable. What does all this have to do with offensive? It has everything to do with it. The world has no problem offending us, stepping on our toes, stepping on our rights, and offending a holy God and telling God, hey, you know what? Your word's crap. Don't tell me I can't marry my gay boy lover. And then those same people, not only is it not enough for them to have gay marriage, but they want same-sex benefits that you as a taxpayer are going to end up paying for if they get that legislated on a federal level. Yep. Mark my words, if they allow gay marriage on a federal level, then guess what? Government workers that are married to their significant same-sex other, you'll be paying for their benefits. I thought we had a separation of church and state. No, we don't. The state is controlling the church. The state is controlling our convictions, and they'll do it through passing legislation where you are obligated to take your tax dollars, the hard-earned money that God gave you, to pay for their illegitimacy. When the church is sitting here playing this little footsie game with the world and having their little Christian rock Muppet shows, and they're telling me we don't want to talk about doctrine, it doesn't matter what it means, Pacific. It doesn't matter. Get out of the pulpit and step down and go get a job at Walmart, okay? Because you're not qualified to preach. You're not qualified to speak. Men should be standing up and shutting down Joyce Myers and say, you do not have a right to be doing what you're doing. Nope. But a bunch of cowardly pussy Christian males and religious men are sitting at her feet, lapping up her toxic spew. It's disgusting. Paula White? I remember the first time I saw Paula White. You talk about a fluty Christian woman. She had on this long sleeve thing, and the sleeves were about this wide and all dangling down, and she's all up there talking. I'm like, here's another reason why white women shouldn't be in any position of authority at all. Look at this character. If anybody's been studying Paula White and her messed up life, and they're not preaching truth. Oh, there's some truth bits here and there, but they're not. The Bible says, I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over men. And what are Christians today that have been feminized, secularized, socialized, evolutionized say, well, that was Paul. He was chauvinistic and he inserted. Don't turn around and say all scripture is God-breathed, given by inspiration of God. God-breathed, and is useful for correction, reproof, rebuke, exhortation, and righteousness. Paul goes on in other passages, what? Did the word of God come from you? But Eve was deceived first. Women are susceptible to deception, and if you don't believe me, the commercialistic, consumeristic, corporate CEO, mercantile hotshots know this. How do you get women to buy a bunch of useless junk? By playing the right music, by appealing to their emotions and not their intellect. That's how. Why is it when the New Age movement came out that more American white women were jumping on this than black women, than Asian women? Shirley MacLaine was a nut job and a half. On the beach, I'm God. Really? Do you have bad breath? Do you poop on a toilet? You're not my God. I remember living in Prescott when that whole New Age thing was under swing, and you had all these ding-dong white women opening up Llama House and Dolly House and, New Age bookstores. Flutie. I remember being in Sedona, Arizona. I went into a toy store where they sold these Majorette. They were a really crummy made brand of French Hot Wheel or Matchbox, and they were poorly built. The die cast wasn't even that good. But they had some pretty cool little trucks and stuff. Talked to the woman, and she says, oh, yeah, don't you just love Sedona? There's power in the red dirt. And I said, excuse me? Oh, when you walk on it, it energizes you. And I said, no, it doesn't do that to me. And she's into New Age, this and that. And I said, well, sorry, ma'am, I believe in Jesus. And all of a sudden, I saw her face start to contort and change because the demon's in her going, oh, he's talking about Jesus. Oh, get him out of your store. You think I'm kidding? I'm not making that up. I'm going to say something, and I have to because I have to get it off my chest. A lot of white women are flakes. They really are. They just don't have substance. They swallow up any euphoric jive that comes down the pike. I remember in the 90s, all those shows, Touched by an Angel, and all this fascination with angels. And it's always that way in American culture. The next fad, Pokemon, anime. Maharani's got a brother and sister that are drowning in anime. The other day I called Maharani and I heard her 22-year-old overweight sister, the other one, the one not drowning in anime, she already hates boys. She was teased by boys in school, and so she's already well on her way to being anti-male all the way. I don't believe she's a Christian. They're Catholic. But when I was talking to Maharani, I heard in the background, loser. And she said, oh, don't listen to my sister. I said, what was that? And we were on the laptop. I called on the phone, and then I said, let's go to Skype. We went to Skype, and she made the comment on Skype. Excuse me. I said, unplug your headphone jack and let me speak. She doesn't want to face me. Let me speak. And I said out loud, I said, you got a 22-year-old sister calling me a loser. When I was 22, I had my own apartment, was working at an aluminum factory, and had my own pickup truck, was paying my own bills and trying to be a responsible human being. I was not living with mom and dad. I was not gaining weight. And I was not putting down people I don't even know. She's never seen my channel, viewers. She hates me simply because it was brought up And the family has a weird habit of doing things. When they have a problem with Maharani, they bring the whole business in front of every other sibling. They cut her out of the will. True story. Since she has met me, and made her younger sister, they trust her more. Because the parents are against her having an interest, one in a white guy and a foreign one at that. And they're against her having an interest in a man who's been, divorced 3 times. And they're against her having an interest in a 48-year-old man. Her father's only a few years older than me. Her mother's pretty close to my age. When we talk about Christianity, this is what I told Maharani. If I had a 23-year-old daughter living at home with me and I was letting her stay on my dime, and she came and said, I met a guy on the internet. Yes. My first thought would be, okay, what kook is out there? Well, tell me about this guy. I'll tell you what, the next time you Skype, can I sit down with you and talk to him face to face? She goes, you would do that? I said, absolutely. Why haven't your parents watched my videos? Why haven't they even wanted to see? Because I'm going to tell you a true story, and this is against my own self. Okay? Don't take this the wrong way. I'm not putting myself down. I'm just saying that as a parent, I would have a strong sense of failure hanging on my shoulders if I had a 23-year-old daughter who I had a somewhat tense relationship with, and all of a sudden she's going after a man old enough to be her dad. I'd want to get into that woman's mind and go, what's going on? Maharani's reasons for this is not the stigma of, oh, he's an older man. It says she connected with a guy through the medium of my channel and said, man, none of the guys are like you. They don't express like you. They're not passionate. They're not cerebral. Can you even get that from your brother who's a year younger than you? Nope. How about the Filipino male friends out there or in Cebu? Nope. How about your father? No. So I called her by name. I said out loud, I said, she wants to call me a loser, but she won't face me. I said, she's 22 years old, needs to go on a diet, is living with mom and dad, smarting off about me, doesn't know me. And I said, when I was her age, I never, ever called a 48-year-old adult a loser where they could hear it. That is just rude, and this woman needs to grow up. She said, I don't even want to hear this guy, and walked out of the room. And I said, of course she doesn't want to hear me. That's the young people today. Fling their cat mess at you and walk out of the room. Maharani smiled, and I said, I'm sorry, you know your dad is going to be told this. She goes, oh, no, she's not going to tell Dad. I said, oh, yes, she will. No, she won't, because she knows she's in the wrong. She wrote me an email the next day saying, I confronted my sister. That was the other thing. She goes, I haven't confronted my sister because they trust her more than me. I said, you're older. Take your place. Doesn't matter what your parents think. You tell your sister that was rude. If your sister was talking to anybody and you walked into the room and said out loud, she's a loser or he's a loser, would your sister put up with that? No. She felt emboldened and she took her on and she said that was rude. And she actually got her sister to say, I admit, I shouldn't have said that. Thank you. She'll never tell me sorry. You notice that about the young girls today? They hear some, oh my gosh, a 48-year-old man is interested in my sister and the family's against it. He's a loser. I'm sorry, but most 20-something-year-old girls today don't know what the word loser means, because I'm being very honest in what I say. Most of them are losers. They're addicted to their texting. Her other sister, who's a little bit younger than her, is addicted to anime. In fact, every time I'm talking to Maharani, she has to share the room with her now because there was mold in the room and there's some repair work going on. And her sister's giggling and laughing constantly. I said, what is so funny over there? Oh, she's watching anime. I said, how do people get so into this? Her parents have more concern about Maharani having an interest in me where we're having intellectual dialogue and talking about deep things, sometimes to the point of having where she's gotten off on some tangent about this thing about grace and starts leaning towards works. And I said, hey, stop it. Her brother's drowning in video games and anime. When they're home, they do not interact as a family except negatively. When her father has come into the room and he doesn't know that she's chatting with me, she's got her headphones on and the computer facing away from him, and he's gruff with her and rude. And I one day said, there's not a lot of love in there. Her brother will open the bedroom door and go, washing, and slam the door and walk out. I said, what was that? Oh, that's his way of telling me that I need to wash the dishes. There's no warmth, there's no love, there's no affection. 4 Asian kids. The girl and the boy, the younger ones, are drowning themselves also on the internet, not in YouTube videos, not in healthy social media interaction, but in solitary media uninteraction, meaning I'm going to watch anime and I'm just going to drown in anime. I'm not going to contribute in anything to the internet world. I'm just going to take it all in. The older sister who was rude to me doesn't want a boyfriend, doesn't want a guy. And I jokingly but seriously said, she's not going to get one anyway. No one's going to go after her. She's utterly rude and she's not attractive. She could be attractive if she was nice. She told her sister that if mom and dad die, I don't even want to see you again. I said, wow, that's scary. If my parents died and they inherited in me a house, or I was living in that house, and my sister were cut out of the will, but my sister and I do have a relationship of amicability, and she is my sister. If she was all by herself and had nowhere to go, I'd say, you can stay in one of the rooms here. Maharani has never been mean to her sister, and I've heard her sister come in the room, and she's moody. She's got the typical fat woman syndrome, moody, bitchy, crabby, and even Maharani says, I notice her crabbiness is every day. I said, that sounds like a healthy family. Your dad's against you talking to a guy who brings up intelligent stuff, but he's not monitoring his daughters, and he says nothing. Maharani said she couldn't internet me the other day. She wrote this from the university library saying that the internet data usage was used up and that most of it was done by the younger sister and the brother downloading anime movies. I said, did your dad confront that? She goes, nope, he didn't even say a word. I said, that's funny. I said, you and I don't even think we're using data usage by Skyping, or if we are, it's minimal. Families are dysfunctional as hell. Hers is no exception. And you know what? It just gets worse and worse. Maharani tells me over and over, I'm trying to bloom where I'm planted, Pacific, but I don't like this. I'm trapped. I can't get a job out there that'll pay me enough to pay Melbourne rent. I have to depend on my parents, and yet I am a woman, and I don't agree with all their views, and I have to watch what I say. I have to walk around on eggshells and be careful not to offend. And I said, do not let your little sister rule over you. You're the oldest and you have pecking order, whether your parents want to recognize it or not. Interestingly enough, her sister did not go to her parents about her rude behavior to me. I thought for sure, oh, well, she's talking to him. And she unplugged the headphone and he had some things to say about me. I fully expected Dad to come back in that room and say, you know what, pal? This is the way most people deal with conflict. They mouth off behind people's backs, but they'll never face them. They won't face my channel. I am the kind of a guy that would. If I had a daughter, I'd say, let me meet the guy you're talking to on Skype, can I? And if she didn't want to do that, I'd say, what's going on? Pacific believes in proactive. I want to know what my daughter or my kid is doing. I want to know. That her folks haven't even made an effort to see what I'm saying and all that. Even her younger sister, who's addicted to anime, is not criticizing her for her interest in me. In fact, told her the other day, I hate to admit this, but since you've met Pacific, You've actually been a lot easier to get along with around here. She said, even my little sister knows that it has affected me in a positive way. Well, good, at least her young sister has a half a brain in her head. Family dynamics are a blast, aren't they? Sometimes it's best just to get away from them. But then we come to the Church of God. I'm so glad I'm a part of the dysfunctional family of God. Nobody is genuine. We're all plastic and fake. We got more plastic here than a Chinese toy factory. I have a hard time with worship. We sing these songs, and I just put my head down and go, I can't get into this. The words of this song are meaningless on the people in here. I'm glad I'm a part of the family of God, but I don't always like my siblings, man. They're a drag, man, to quote the 60s. Man, that guy's a drag. We got a world that's changing so fast, and the church is changing, and not for the better. And yeah, Sunday mornings are tough. All I'm getting at church on Sunday morning is knowledge. That's it. And some good Christian music, meaning not Christian rock, but some good hymn, some stringed instruments, handbell choir, some good quality music that is good. But even in that, if your heart isn't right, you can sing it, you can be all into it, but it doesn't mean you're worshiping in a way that's acceptable to God. Present your body as a living sacrifice. Ouch. And that's what hurts. What does it mean to be a living sacrifice? Does it mean to be a smart aleck jerk and call people names like a lot of these Christian women do? And I agree with what that preacher said, Israel Johnson. You say you want to be married? No, you don't. You're just a hoe. And I agree. I see these white women. I want a godly man. No, you don't. In fact, the more time that goes by, I've met more of these Christian women that haven't dated anybody, but they've had a guy's hands up her shirt. They've French kids. They had a mini romance, and then they broke it off. And then they went to another mini romance and broke it off and went to another mini. Well, we didn't have sex. No, not at all. You just fornicated under each other's shirts. Give me a break. I love when the truth comes out about our culture and I just start being bold about it. I feel good about this. I feel empowered to talk about it because it is liberating to finally have the authority and the freedom by God to say, hey, American female culture in the U.S., you're a mess. Heal yourself, man. And the church issues and so-called family. The word family, to me, is almost offensive now because when I think of family, I just look around at the families in church. Their kids are brats. They don't mind. They don't shut up. They can't be quiet in the upstairs balcony when I say, hey, guys, I'm trying to hear. And they don't even say, I'm sorry, that was wrong. And they're rude and giving me the steel-eyed look. The teenagers sizing me up. It's like, hey, dude, if you would like to, in good Christian fashion, we can go out behind the church and settle this the old-fashioned way. And I guarantee you, you won't be the last man standing. I will, punk. Get saved and start growing up. Pacific, are you advocating violence? No, but sometimes I'd like to go back to the 40s where I could go grab one of these teenagers by the shirt and say, look, I asked you to shut up. Shut up. And if you don't, I'm going to silence you once and for all. No, not kill him. Sometimes an old-fashioned thrashing is good for some of these punks today, and they're not getting it. Oh, yeah. I think we just stepped on just about every toe out there that we can. We've offended the Democrats. We've offended white women. We've offended feminism and church people and religious people and insipid Christians and cultural Christians. And yeah, but we need to. I'm offended every day. And I'm not offended because I'm convicted. I'm offended by people that are being offensive and hateful and sinning against God and me and punk it on me, and it's like, that's not right. And we got Christians running around trying to play this little niceties game. Come now. If the people of God don't stand up, we're in big trouble. This is Pacific signing off. Bye-bye.